Hi guys, today we're going to take a look at what I believe to be the optimal monk spell rotations. And I will just warn you that the monk rotations are definitely a little bit more tricky to understand than other vocations. So I hope this video is helpful and it clears it up. So try and bear with me and stick with me, and I hope you find it useful. If something is not clear, feel free to ask in the Discord or in the comments, and I'll be happy to advise a little bit more. So, first of all, before talking about rotations, we need to explain what the virtues of a monk are, because this impacts their rotations very, very significantly. So, as a monk, you will always be in a virtue, one out of three of them, once you are promoted at level 20. And there is a 10-second cooldown to switch between the virtues. So before the monk was released and tested, there was maybe a feeling that you might want to be doing virtue weaving or switching as you're hunting. So like you might be hunting with virtue of justice, and then just before you do a big spend ability, you switch to virtue of harmony, then switch back to virtue of justice, this kind of idea. That's not the way the monk plays. It doesn't feel like that is the best way to play. So my assumption for hunting is that you will just stay in one chosen virtue depending on what you're doing, and that's that. Okay, so I don't think there's going to be any virtue weaving. I don't think that is a recommended way to play, and I'm not going to be recommending. That's my assumption. It's my strong feeling that that's not going to be necessary. So quick breakdown of the three virtues. Virtue of Harmony has a 10-second full rotation. This is because there is one fewer build ability needed to get 5 max stacks of Harmony. Hence, this gives us a 10-second rotation because we need to use 4 build abilities, and then as the 5th one, we use the spender ability. And also in Virtue of Harmony, you have more powerful spender abilities. They scale more with the Harmony stacks. Next up, we have the Virtue of Justice, which is a 12-second full rotation because it needs one more builder ability than the Virtue of Harmony. So you have 5 builder abilities plus 1 spender ability at the end of it. And this gives you 20% more fist fighting in Serene State. I think it's 10% outside of Serene State, something like that. It's like it basically gives you more fist fighting. Maybe the 20% is wrong. Maybe it's like 15. I don't remember exactly. Basically, you get more fist fighting. So this is something that just benefits everything. This increases the damage of your melee because you have more fist fighting. This increases the damage of your builders, which scale with melee damage, and this increases your damage of the spenders. So this is like a more of a generic boosts kind of everything virtue, whereas the Virtue of Harmony is more focused on the spender abilities. And last of all, we have Virtue of Sustain, which is again a 12-second full rotation, just like Virtue of Justice, 5 builder abilities plus 1 spender ability. And this is basically a more healing kind of virtue, so that you sustain yourself more for your abilities, and also your healing on others is higher. So this is basically a sustain or healing virtue, as the name might suggest. So what are my recommendations for the virtues? From level 20 to level 70, I recommend using the Virtue of Justice, which is just a fist fighting. This is because you're mostly single target melee hunting, so you don't really need the sustain or the harmony. You're not really doing the spenders. So, just use Virtue of Justice from level 20 to level 70. At level 70, you unlock your full sort of AoE rotation with Chain Penance and Sweep and Takedown. And then I recommend using Virtue of Harmony. Currently, after the test server, I strongly feel that Virtue of Harmony is today the most optimal way to play the game. This is because the spender abilities are very powerful, and in the Virtue of Harmony you get to cast the big powerful spender every 10 seconds instead of every 12 seconds, which is very, very satisfying, very powerful. Obviously the monk might get rebalanced months after this video is released, so I will provide basically alternatives, but basically the rotation actually doesn't change very much if you're using Virtue of Justice or Virtue of Harmony. For example, if you're using Virtue of Justice, the rotation will be the same as the Virtue of Harmony, except that you'll just have 1 extra builder abilities built in, right? So instead of doing like 1 chain penance, you'll just do 2 chain penances in the rotation. So that's it. So the rotations don't change very much, really, based on the rotation, based on the virtue anyway. But as I'm saying, I think level 70 Virtue of Harmony, in my opinion, is the default best virtue to be in, so we're going to have a 10-second full rotation. For bossing, I recommend either Virtue of Justice or Virtue of Harmony. This is quite difficult to answer exactly what's going to be best. I think with bossing, basically doing single target solo hunting, obviously the Virtue of Justice helps a lot with the melee damage. Some of the wheels that I'll cover in another video may also be better for bossing with like the melee damage. So I think Virtue of Justice might have some room for bossing. Or maybe Virtue of Harmony will still be best with like powerful spender single target abilities. I don't actually know as of right now. This question I'll be able to answer in like a year or two once I've actually done some bossing. It'll either be Justice or Harmony. It's hard to say. It requires more testing. I think both of them will be pretty close. I don't think it's actually all that important. For team hunting, I recommend Virtue of Harmony when hunting with a druid, because that is the one that's going to be dealing most damage, and probably when you're hunting with a druid, that's what you care about. Or if you're hunting without a druid, you probably want to go for Virtue of Sustain so that you can heal the team a little bit more, heal yourself a bit more, and presumably in those sort of times, the other vocations are probably doing more responsible for the damage, so you can be more about the sustain. If you duo hunting, it depends on what difficulty thing you're hunting. If you're hunting something easy in a duo, then probably stick to Virtue of Harmony. If you're hunting something very difficult in a duo, then probably Virtue of Sustain. And this pretty much sums up the virtues. I hope this is a little bit complex. I have to admit, like this is a complex system, more complex than anything else we have in the game for other vocations. So I can understand if you're not fully following, but I hope I've done my best to explain. If something's still not clear, feel free to ask the question in the comments. I'll be happy to answer. And now let's actually look at the expected spell rotations. So here I have for you the 3 basic AoE rotations based on the virtues. So the first 2 rotations that I call 1A and 1B are basically the same. They're in the permanent harmony virtue, permanent harmony, which the rotation takes 5 turns or 10 seconds. And the only thing that is different is that in this 1B, this is like a level 500 plus wheel, where you go for a tier 2 chained penance wheel. At that point, in my opinion, Chained Penance becomes better than Flurry of Blows, so it just replaces Flurry of Blow in the order. So if you look at it, the first 2 rotations, we just open up with Greater Flurry of Blows, then we have Flurry of Blows followed by Chained Penance followed by Flurry of Blows, while below we have Chained Penance followed by Flurry of Blows followed by Chained Penance. So that's the only thing that changes. You use 2 Chained Penances instead of 2 Flurry of Blows like it is above. And for the spenders, you use, and then after you have the 5 charges, you just use the spender ability, which is Outburst and Takedown. I will talk about a little bit about in a minute whether to use Outburst or Takedown, but the point is you then use a spender ability and then you restart with the Greater Flurry of Blows again. The rotation 2 is the rotation that you'll be using in like a permanent Justice or the permanent sustain virtue, which just extends the rotation by 2 seconds and to 6 turns. And like I mentioned in the previous slide already, this basically just means you have 1 extra builder ability. So you just have Greater Flurry of Blows, twice regular Flurry of Blows, and twice regular Chained Penance. And then you do the spender. And yeah, that's it. That's the rotation I've been following on the test server. That's the rotation I'm anticipating to be the go-tos. I honestly think that just the 1A rotation is probably what you're going to be doing. Like, if you don't know what you're doing, just go for the 1A. This is what you can have from like level 70, basically, right? This is your level 70 rotation for this permanent harmony rotation 1A. At a higher level, maybe on like team hunting with sustain virtue, maybe you'll be using this rotation too. I don't know, but I think I'm expecting 1A to be the sort of default for majority of the Monk's gameplay. Moving on, just wanted to say a few words about Outburst versus Takedown. So those are the 2 AoE spender abilities. Takedown is the default one, so unlocked, I believe, at level 60. And Outburst is the one from the wheel that you can unlock at level 300 once you get the Outburst perk. Now, my feeling based on the test server, and this may change or be rebalanced, my feeling is that Takedown, the default level 61, is still better than Outburst. Outburst becomes a little bit better at like a much higher level. If you have like the tier 2 Outburst from the wheel, maybe it becomes better. But overall, I think Takedown is very, very strong. So I'm actually anticipating maybe just using Takedown as the default one always, and just using Outburst in focus, Serenity, focus, harmony situations, which I will talk about in a second. But this is subject to change and to testing and stuff. Doesn't really impact the rotations because, if Outburst is the best one, then you just use Outburst when it's off cooldown and use Takedown in this otherwise. But rotation is still basically the same. It just varies which spender you use in the sort of spender time in the rotation. So it's not super important for the rotations, just something to keep in mind. And more information on this will be shared, in a few months, because right now it's still not fully tested which one is actually better. My feeling is Takedown is very good and you can probably just stick to that. But Outburst probably will be buffed over time, in my opinion, so that it is always better than Takedown eventually, but probably not on day 1. Next thing I wanted to mention is the Focus Harmony and Focus Serenity things. So, a Focus Harmony is a spell you can cast every 2 minutes, and it just fills up your Harmony charges immediately. And it's a support spell, so you don't skip an attack turn. So, bottom line, you want to be using it every 2 minutes, because it allows you to do a fully charged spender ability every 2 minutes. And this is basically what you do. This is like just a little semi-rotation that you want to be doing every 2 minutes. You want to build up your 5 Harmony charges, like using any of the basic AoE rotation like you do. Use your spender ability, then cast Focus Harmony, and then cast the other spender ability. Obviously, this becomes available only at level 300 once you unlock the second spender ability. Otherwise, you're not going to have the cooldown available. So this is only relevant for level 300 plus when you have 2 AoE spender abilities. And then after you do that second spender ability, you basically just restart your rotation again, from a greater flurry of blows. So this thing here is the reason why the Outburst wheel is going to be used anyway, even if Outburst is weaker than Takedown. Okay, this is why my recommended wheel that I'll make in another video will be to go for an Outburst wheel from level 300, because this Focus Harmony stuff is going to be very, very strong. Basically, every 2 minutes, it's actually quite often, that's like 30 minutes an hour, 30 times an hour, that gets you to do like this massive, powerful spender, for free, basically. Very, very powerful. You want to learn to do this. It's kind of annoying to track this 2 minute cooldown. It is what it is. Maybe save it for slightly bigger boxes or something, but you do want to be using this because this is going to like distinguish. If you don't do this versus a monk who does do this effectively, that's going to be probably like a 5% experience difference in your results just from this. So I think this is very worthwhile to sort of invest the time to build up the muscle memory to be using the Focus Harmony and doing this double spender back to back using the Focus Harmony. And going a bit further, we also have a Focus Serenity spell every 10 minutes, which not only immediately charges your Harmony charges, it also resets the cooldowns of other abilities, basically allowing you to chain like a triple spender with the Focus Harmony. So this is something you're going to be able to do every 10 minutes. So this actually is up to you whether this is something you want to be doing every 10 minutes. Or if this is something you want to be saving for, like, if you get trapped in, like, a box and to save yourself, for example, right? Because every 10 minutes, that means it's 6 times an hour. It's impactful. It's powerful. But, that's not going to impact massively the overall results. So maybe just to make my life easier, maybe I will not be doing this every 10 minutes. I'll be saving it for, like, a big box. If I feel like I'm almost dying in the box, maybe I'll do this, twice an hour, for example. Something to consider. But anyway, this is my suggested usage of how you would do it. You would have 5 Harmony charges built up. You would use your spender. You would go with Focus Harmony, because presumably you'll have that off cooldown as well every 10 minutes. Then you would go Greater Flurry of Blows, because now you basically can fit that in for free, essentially, and it's a shame to skip it. You don't have to cast this Greater Flurry of Blows. It's just going to increase your average DPS. Then you go Spender Outburst. Then you basically the other spender, right? Not Takedown. Then you go Focus Serenity, which charges your Harmony charges again and resets the cooldown. And you're able to go spender again, either Outburst or Takedown. At this point, it doesn't really matter because you've reset the cooldowns of both. And then you can go on and reset and restart your rotation with Greater Flurry of Blows again. Really, really powerful. This is going to be this here, right here, by the way, also is what you're going to want to be using when you're like trying to win for Rumbras, for example, because this is like, let's have a look. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is like a 10-second rotation in itself, this thing right here. So this is basically how long a Farumbras lives, right? So this is what you're going to want to be doing if you want to be winning like a Farumbras or in like a PvP situation. This is how you kill somebody, basically. Very, very powerful. Kind of complex, I guess, but no, it's not too bad, right? You just need to have easy access to this Focus Harmony and Focus Serenity hotkeys, and you need to be tracking those cooldowns. Again, recommend you do get used to doing it. Whether you cast it every 10 minutes off cooldown is up to you, or if you want, basically save it for when you're in trouble for like a tricky situation. Again, yeah, up to you, but you definitely want to be capable of doing this if you get yourself in those situations. And moving on, finally, we have some single target rotations. Now, before I go into these, I will admit that those are the ones I'm the least confident in. I haven't done any proper single target bossing on the test server. I didn't bother. This is something that I'm going to practice more and more on real Tibia as I get higher levels on the monk. This is purely theoretical from just looking at the abilities. So again, you can try this one out, but it's very possible, plausible that in time a better single target rotation will be found out. So I apologize, but this one is probably going to serve you more or less fine. So we have two different virtues. So you've got the Justice one. I reckon you open up with Greater Flurry of Blows. Then you use Mystic Repulse if it's off cooldown because it has quite a long cooldown. Otherwise, you use Flurry of Blows. Then you go into Chain Penance, Flurry of Blows. Then you go Forceful Uppercut if it's off cooldown because, again, this is a spell that has like a 60-second cooldown, so you won't always have it available. If it's not available, you go Chain Penance. So if Mystic Repulse and Forceful Uppercut are on cooldown, it's basically a single target AoE rotation. But if they're off cooldown, then you use Forceful Uppercut and Mystic Repulse. And then you spend the rest of Devastating Knockout. And then in the Harmony stance virtue, it's kind of similar. You go Greater Flurry of Blows, then you go Chain Penance, which I think is better for single target than Flurry of Blows. And then use Mystic Repulse or Flurry of Blows, again, depending on what's available off cooldown. And then again, Forceful Uppercut or Chain Penance here if Forceful Uppercut is available. And you finish off with Devastating Knockout and rinse and repeat. Like I say, I think those probably have some room for improvement. I don't know whether the Justice virtue or the Harmony virtue is going to be better. My feeling is that the Harmony virtue will be better for bossing probably as well. But this, I will test this, a lot once I actually start doing some bossing on the monk, which is not going to be for a few months. But I think those rotations probably going to be fine. Maybe there is a way to make them a little bit better, especially if you get like Mystic Repulse cooldown reduction in the wheel, which I know is a thing. Maybe then you just get more Mystic Repulses in there. Not sure. But these are going to serve you just fine. And anyway, this is what I had to show you today. I guess the only other thing to maybe briefly mention is a rotation for Team Hunting and the Sustain virtue. I don't exactly know how those would work because it's kind of awkward that the Mass Res is a spender ability. So, you kind of want to be doing this sort of basic AoE rotation when you hunt Team Hunting. But then I don't know when you want to be using this Mass Res because you're going to be spending your Harmony charges, which can mess up your damage. So I'm not sure. Maybe you'll be using the spender abilities to deal damage, and immediately after that, you want to be using your Mass Res. Or if you're the main druid, you basically just use the Mass Res as the spender ability to heal everybody. Not sure. It's not really obvious to me. There's not been enough Team Hunting as a monk to be able to really say. But yeah, basically it's going to be most likely just an AoE rotation, and you're going to want to throw in a Mass Res somewhere in there, depending on whether you want to do big Mass Reses or if you just want to be doing filler Mass Reses and actually doing spender damage abilities. Up to you. Anyway, like I said, all I had for you today, guys. The monk has not yet been released. This is all purely from the test server, and these things are bound to change. So if anything's changed or if anything's not clear, feel free to ask in the comments. I'll be happy to answer. Obviously, check out my stream. I'll be streaming and talking about the rotations as I develop them over time as well. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. Any questions, let me know, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.